listening to Convenience Matters, brought to you by NACS. We'll talk about what we see at stores and what the future may hold for our industry.
Some people look at wages and benefits as the biggest expense in their stores, but the smart ones look at wages and benefits as the ability to have your biggest asset. That's the ability to get and attract key people and keep them there. And that's going to be our conversation today. Joining us today to talk about all things HR related, focused on NACS and some other diversions related to HR, is Jayme Gough. She is Market Research Manager here at NACS, and we're going to geek out on some numbers and we're going to tell some stories. So thanks for joining us today, Jayme.
Thanks, Jeff. Glad to be here. Super excited. You might not think that numbers and HR usually go hand in hand. Some people have a hard time putting those together, but we're going to try to do it today.
We'll take the reins and just take us away and talk a little bit about some of the numbers in HR. What kind of stuff do you collect, and how do you collect it, and how do you disseminate it?
And who do you get it from?
Exactly.
Well, we actually at NACS have a ton of great resources for our HR folks in the industry. I think we're going to spend a good amount of time talking about what I do, but before we get into that, I mean, there's some other people across the building who do some great things in the space as well. We have an event specifically focused on HR and convenience. It's called our HR Forum, and it's in March every year. There are a ton of great presenters at this event. I'll be there. So if you want to hear more from today's podcast, you can definitely join us there as well. We also have a lot of great ed sessions at the NACS show focused on HR. We have focus groups, we have working groups, we have different groups of people that we bring together on a regular or somewhat regular basis to just talk about the issues that they're facing on a day-to-day basis. Because HR has a lot of issues. If you work in HR, you know. If you don't work in HR, you also know. So a lot of great stuff that we have in that space. NACS also has a partnership with the Good Jobs Institute, which, Jeff, you're very familiar with. I'm sure we worked with them for a while, putting together a calculator for the industry that will help retailers put in their own data and kind of figure out where there are some opportunities to increase wages in order to have some ROI on that. So it's actual physical concrete data. We love that because it helps support the story that providing great wages for your employees also provides a great ROI for the business. So super important.
And that last point, it's about metrics, and all three of us, we talk about how metrics influence or guide decisions in everything we do, whether it's looking at content strategy related to online or social media, whether it's communicating research numbers to members. It just, numbers are everything we do. And with a good job strategy, that calculator is really effective. It takes some time to dig in. But Zeynep Ton spoke at the NACS show, and in one of the general sessions, and people came up afterwards and said, "I had no idea." And how can you prove or demonstrate that by paying people more, you will be a stronger business because of that? It's a really hard statement to understand until you can look at the metrics, and that's what we're going to look at. We're going to look at some of the metrics here.
Absolutely.
So let's start with the compensation report. That's something that's been around at NACS for decades, and it's been in your portfolio for less than decades. But now it's now it's something that you oversee, and it's something that's very top of mind to a lot of members now in terms of timeliness.
Yep, absolutely. So the report has been around since 1978, so just a little bit before I was hired here. I have a copy of it. If you want to see, check it out. I know.
Like how many pages?
It was definitely less comprehensive back then than it was today, but it's clear that the issue has always been super important to the industry, and that's why we do this. That's why we provide these benchmarking reports, both from a compensation side as well as the state of the industry report and all of the data that we collect for the SOI Summit, is because we want to provide data for the industry to help our retailers benchmark themselves, make sure that they're keeping up with what's going on in the industry, and ultimately, as they say, the tide raises all boats. We want to better the industry altogether as well. So the report, it comes from a survey that is conducted annually by me. We open the survey typically around the end of, say, the beginning of the fourth quarter of the year, and it goes until the end of the year. It is a retailer-only survey, so it's the only convenience-specific benchmarking survey for HR that I'm aware of, and so it is a super important resource for the industry in that way. One of the main kind of subjects that it covers is obviously compensation and bonuses. So a lot of retailers like to use the survey to look at their kind of comp practices and see, are we in line with what's going on in the rest of the industry? And that can be at a company size level. So looking at comparable operators. So if you have 10 stores, you can look at another operator who has 10 stores and see, are we in line with what's going on there? So obviously compensation is a huge piece of it. Benefits is also a huge function of the report. So we ask about different insurances, medical, dental, vision, prescription, all of those fun things, as well as some recruitment and retention and turnover metrics. Obviously, turnover is a huge problem and a perennial issue for the industry. So it is something that we like to track, something we like to report on, so we can see, when we look back, what were some of the strategies that retailers were trying to implement, and was that effective, or how effective was that? So there's a lot covered in the survey. It's obviously quite long, but the folks that I talk to about it say that it's worth the time to invest, putting their data in. I aggregate everything, and then being able to have access to the report when it comes out.
So going back to one thing you said earlier, if you have 5 stores, you're able to look at somebody else with 5 stores. You're able to look at a anonymized store. You're not able to say, oh, well, this is store so-and-so in pick a state, and you have no idea.
There's no way you would know.
Has submitted.
No, absolutely not.
Because that has been central to NACS research going back even further, back to 1969, 1970, when we first created some benchmark pieces. Everything is submitted in confidentiality, and that's very, very important as we talk to people about why it's important to submit data, because we need the data, we will protect the data, and then we will use the data to help raise the tide and make the industry that much better.
Absolutely. I cannot say that enough. The data is completely anonymized. It is completely aggregated. There is no way that anyone would be able to trace it back. Super important.
So when you talk to retailers, what kind of things do they say about well, first off, it's like, well, we need this, or we wish we had that, or fill in the blank question. I assume some of those questions are answered by, well, we actually do have those. Or are there others where it's like, well, back burner, but something that is intriguing to us? Are there those kind of questions that you're getting throughout the year where we'd like this, or we'd like more information on this?
Yes, absolutely. So there's always more, right? I mean, we provide as much as we can, but we would love to be able to provide more. I do get one-off questions around, the cost to hire, the cost to train, looking at how many people are employed in a certain department, kind of structural things and org charts, things like that. But a lot of it is something we can figure out if we don't have. And if we can't figure it out or we don't have it, it's something that I look at providing in the survey every year. So I do usually an kind of audit of the survey throughout the summer and say, hey, are we missing some key data point that people are looking for. One example of that is the ghost rate, which was a thing for, our new lovely Gen Z population. They are accustomed to people, saying they're going to show up somewhere and then not showing up. And that actually happens in the workplace, believe it or not. You couldn't imagine that would ever happen, but it does. And in the industry, it's actually a pretty big problem. So we were at about 15% of people who said at the store level they had accepted a job, but then never showed up for the first day. So that's kind of crazy, right? Especially when you think about the cost that goes into getting that person an acceptance letter, or making sure that they've accepted the job. You've got the time of either the recruiter or the manager or whoever is kind of interviewing that person and going through the process. You've got the cost of the equipment that they need, the uniform, the name tag, whatever it is that you need to get for them to get them set up for that first day, and then they just don't show up. So things like that, it's a kind of a one-off data point, but it is important to add those things. So I'm always kind of keeping an ear to the ground and listening for, what people really want, so I can make sure it's included moving forward.
1 in 7 ghost employers. That's a staggering number. And you think about some of these things, and we've all been in situations where it's like you tell the team, it's like, just wait, we're going to be at full employment, just a couple more days. And it's like, where's the new person? And it's like, got to talk to you about that.
All right. So if you're listening and you've done that, don't do that. Not cool.
Yes.
Well, then there's also, what we would call something like a soft cost, which is, the morale that it takes a toll on, or like just the time that people had to take to do all this. And now it's like, oh my gosh, I have to interview another person. I have to do this on top of my day job.
I have to keep doing 2 jobs on top of my own. Yeah. That relief is not coming. Thanks, Ghoster. Casper.
Yes. And unlink on LinkedIn and all those things you did before the new employee.
There's like their pictures like up behind, the cash register. Like, if you see this person.
Exactly. And hopefully they didn't have any sort of referral bonus or anything like that, which is another cost that go in.
Yeah.
It's tough out there. It really is.
Besides, I know, but besides the ghosting rate, which is something that's come up the past 2 years, I heard you talk about it at one of the HR forums a couple of years ago. And anything else over the last couple of years that's been surprising, good or bad, in looking at trends related to compensation and benefits within our industry?
Well, I would maybe go broader than even our industry, just looking at overall labor trends. So, when we're looking at the population of available workers, the labor force, we're seeing a ton of retirees from the baby boomers. We're seeing people stay in school longer to, get a higher education, or they're staying at home to caregive or do all these things. There are various factors that are contributing to ultimately a smaller pool of people that we have, to go after, to look for. And, coming out of the pandemic and everything that happened there with, people kind of feeling a little bit, not great about the world, not great about working. We've seen a lot of interesting hiring strategies to try to get people, in, and like, what can we do to attract? But really, I think it's kind of going back to the basics, honestly, of just making sure that employees feel safe, feel taken care of, feel listened to, feel like they can have an impact, and not have, some of the things that happened during the pandemic where, customers would come in and, not be the greatest to people. So I think it's just kind of getting back to like, making sure it's a good place for people to be, kind of the base level, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? We need to feel secure and safe and all these things. So for me, I think that's kind of the biggest shift, is trying to figure out, how do we navigate not having as many people as we might have, having a lot of competitors. I mean, that's obviously a huge piece for the industry as well. We don't compete for talent within our industry only. We compete for talent across multiple industries. So it just makes it really difficult. So making sure that you can differentiate some way, I think is the key. And What is the best way? I don't know. I wish I knew. I think it depends on, the operator, where you are, and what you're trying to do.
When we looked at it in safety and security and a stable work environment, all super critical, as you said, bottom of Maslow's hierarchy. When we've surveyed consumers, also a couple other things popped out in terms of what do you look for in jobs, in addition to what you mentioned, in its purpose. So there's opportunity there to tell a story about why your job matters, how you service the community, how you make the community better. A lot of great stories to be told there. It's using hard numbers and then just stories that every retailer has. Second is flexibility, and you had talked about retirees. We've heard from all kinds of different demographics. There's opportunities. School bus drivers driving early in the day, late in the day. Can they run an afternoon shift when you might need some help around food service? So different ways to look at flexibility, but also a big part of our industry. And the third is first jobs. And that always is a great story to tell, the opportunity that we allow people to really learn a lot about how to manage a business in a very short period of time, when learning is top of mind with younger people. So combine that with effective compensation and rewarding people in specific markets by specific sizes, kind of a winning combination there. And it's all art. It is, we wish it could be science. You can certainly use science to tell the broader story. And that's the whole goal with the compensation report and some of these other tools.
Yep, absolutely. You said something about, where you're recruiting from. So that's something we're trying to get a little bit of a gauge on for this year's survey. So we are asking a question about, are you recruiting from certain groups of people? So veterans, older workers, college workers, re-recruiting former employees. So that's an interesting strategy. Maybe not the ones that were involuntary terminations, but the ones that were voluntary terminations. How do you, get those people back, or are they interested in coming back? That's a strategy I've seen some people use.
When the three of us have something in common, and this year we all joined our chairman, Don Rhodes, who in a series of road trips said, I want to go visit convenience stores, and not just see convenience stores, but he called it his thank you tour. And central to the thank you tour was to thank the frontline worker, not necessarily go to the CEO and go up to the C-suite and shake some hands, but it was meeting the people there that are the face of the business. Mm-hmm. And they are the culture. They're a whole bunch of things. And to have the right package in place to get them as excited as some of the things that we saw on the road. Chrissy and I talked about some of them with Don. Did Jayme and Chrissy, do you have any favorite memories of your East Coast tour where you went from essentially the Washington, D.C. area to Savannah
with
a whole bunch of stops?
We were driving to the HR forum, actually.
Yeah. So what struck you HR related or otherwise on your trips?
I really, Don, he is such a great personality, and he's such a, warm and kind person. And he definitely beelined right to the frontline people. When we went into stores, taking pictures with them, shaking their hands, thanking them, of course, explaining who he was. Otherwise it would have been super creepy. But, just that aspect of just seeing, smiles on faces and people who I felt like they enjoyed what they were doing, and, who they were working with and for, and greeting their customers. And we met a lot of super happy, super friendly people. And I think over the, this year I went in probably close to, 100 C-stores, if not more. And I can't recall someone looking completely miserable when I walked in. It's just, that to me is not a characteristic of our industry.
Yep. I would agree. For me, I know a lot of people have probably seen a Buc-ee's or been in a Buc-ee's. I had not until our road trip. So
Yep.
first of all,
Neither had Don.
yeah, right. So it was a new experience for the both of us, and I think people have seen what they have posted out in terms of their wages and how they're hiring and what they're doing there. And so that is a little bit of a shock when you see it at first. You're like, whoa, this seems so high, right? So that was definitely a shock for me. But I think, within the industry, like I kind of mentioned earlier, our labor pool expands across and outside of the industry. I don't think we're all necessarily competing for exactly the same person, or a person that might work in a, mass merch versus us or whatever. But when it comes to, that whole wage thing, and, it doesn't have to be about the wages. I think that there is a component of that where people want to feel like they are adequately paid for what the job is. And so I think I won't go on my side tangent about job descriptions, but I think job descriptions are one of the single most important things that you can do and do right in the hiring process. Maybe we'll talk about that later. But as it comes back to wages, you don't have to be paying the tip top end of that. I think if people feel like they are adequately compensated and they can live their life and pay their bills and feed their families and, do the things they need to do, that's really the base level that's set there. And there are other components of the job, like, feeling safe and secure, and that your manager listens to you, and that you have a role to play that is maybe greater than what you do on a daily basis. Those are all the things that complete or like round out the total compensation package, right? It starts with the wages, but it doesn't end with the wages. So I guess that was for me the biggest, woo, wow.
Well, the other thing, and I want you to talk a little bit more about job descriptions, and we'll talk about that briefly, and then we'll wrap up with how everybody can be a part of the compensation survey, whether in contributing or participating in purchasing it and all that. But going back to job descriptions, we both spent some time in car with people, several days, and it can go really bad if you don't all agree on some common arrangements and how things will go. You're going to hit traffic, you're going to hit all kinds of things. But if you don't have expectations up front about what you're going to be doing for a couple of days in the car with someone, it can be unpleasant. That was certainly not the case. We had a good sense of what we wanted to do. We all knew how we were going to do it together. So that kind of ties in taking it back from the road trip to look at job descriptions and talk a little bit more about why you feel it's important.
So I think that it's all about setting an expectation. And it's the same thing whether you're going on a road trip with somebody, whether you're going to your family's holiday party, this, holiday. It's all about understanding what is going to happen and what happens next. People don't like to show up and have completely no idea about what the deal is, right? And so that is kind of the way I feel about job descriptions. And you'll see if you go out and search and Google, I've done it, a lot of really, 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 really rosy looking job descriptions, right? Like you're going to meet a lot of people and make all these connections and, you're going to have an impact on daily lives, which is true. But you also might have to occasionally clean a bathroom. You might have to restock shelves. You might have to deal with customers who aren't super happy with you. So making sure that setting up that expectation that, yes, you're going to have a phenomenal job working here, but you're also going to have to make sure that you can deal with things that are not super rosy and easy. I think that a lot of people would agree that some of the most fulfilling moments or things that you've done in your life are not the easy things that you've done in your life. And so being able to say, hey, look, like this job is going to make you feel super fulfilled. You're going to have this great impact, and it's going to be a little hard, honestly, sets up that right expectation of, people know what they're coming into. They don't just think they're going to be, maybe behind a register all day when they probably won't, because the reality is in the store, you're doing a lot of everything. So, just setting that is super important. And I mean, another side tangent on, there are a lot of wonderful, helpful tools out there, ChatGPT, that can help you write job descriptions if you need to go back and, say, hey, maybe we should look at this. I mean, it is it's a huge task to go do this, especially if you, haven't done it in 5 years, 10 years, maybe more. But there are resources that can help you do it a little bit quicker now. So at least there's that.
Well, labor has been the top issue of the year. The second one that you see right behind that is AI. And Jayme, to your credit, you are the first person that introduced me to that earlier this year. When you said, here is my poem, I asked AI to write a poem about convenience stores, and it was quite good. Maybe we'll have to find a time to talk about that, unless you can recite it from memory.
No, I cannot. It was pretty cute, though. You have to admit.
So reach out to Jayme. She can send you the convenience store poem. I'm sure it's somewhere there, or we can recreate it, or you send us a better one. But to close things out, let's tell people listening about what they need to do or can do over the coming weeks related to the compensation survey and some of the other NACS products.
Certainly. So the survey is open now. You can find it by just Googling NACS Compensation Survey. It will pop up there. It's on our homepage at convenience.org. So you can go check it out there. There's an online version or portal to get to the survey online. A lot of folks prefer to actually complete it using an Excel workbook, because then you can, send pieces off if you have different, folks in your HR department who do benefits versus comp versus, more of the turnover stuff. So a lot of folks prefer to do Excel. If you want to complete it in Excel, you can just send me an email and I'll just send it back, and just send it back to me when you're done. So that's the easiest way to do the survey. If you have any questions, you can reach out to me. I kind of forgot to mention that was going to be one of my HR, resources at NACS, me. So if you ever need to reach out to HR, I'm here. I try to answer emails as fast as I can. So I'm around if you have any questions on it. The survey's open until the end of December. So we've got just a couple weeks left. So super important to get it in. And I will say it is not required to complete every single line. It is some odd 300 data points in the survey, something around there. So really just putting in what you have, what you collect in your business, what's relevant in your business. That's what we want. And then over, the next couple of months in the first quarter of the year, I'll do all the analysis, get all the data back. And you know what? We totally didn't even talk about the fact that we have this awesome comp dashboard that we are putting all the data in starting next year. We are actually no longer going to be producing a PDF static report. Right. So this is actually super exciting, and I'm having a demo on it later this week. So I'm not sure when the podcast is going to air. It might be in the past, but there's a demo that is happening on the tool. So we have basically taken everything in the survey, migrated it into a digital platform, a dashboard that will allow you to be able to just click through a little bit easier instead of having to scroll through looking for particular positions, compensation. You'll be able to just click into that position and find it super easily. I am super, super excited about it. I think it's just going to make everything a lot easier for all of our HR folks. And it's also going to be more collaborative because it's going to be unlimited licenses. So if you participate in the survey, you'll have access to the data. Your whole team will have access to the data. And it's just going to make it a lot easier for everybody. So super excited about it. If you have any questions, you can go ahead and just shoot me an email anytime.
So your job description: convenience store poems, great road trip partner, knows everything about HR. Fill in the blank, send Jayme a note, complete the survey. Let's keep moving on just getting the best data out there for our most important issue this year, next year, every year. So thanks for joining us again, Jayme.
Thank you guys so much.
And thank you all for listening to Convenience Matters.
Convenience Matters is brought to you by NACS and produced in partnership with Human Factor. For more information, visit convenience.org.